Anyway, it's 2:31, so we're going to get started because I want to respect your time. We've got a few people here so far, and I'm sure more will join us as we go. So we're here today for Course C of the module Teaching Across Learning Environments, and we're going to be focusing today on assessment and reflection. I'm Susan Midlarski. I'm an instructional and technical consultant. I was a former IT specialist at MIT, so that kind of gave me a lot of insight to helping bring technology into the classroom. I also write curriculum in both ELA and math, and I've been in K-12 education for over 20 years, so I've been in multiple settings as that. I would love to hear a little bit more about each of you. We heard a little bit from Mr. Juvan. We have a lot of other people I'd love to hear from. I recognize some names and a face. So anyone who would like to add in, I'd really like to hear from you. What grade you teach, what subject you teach. I'm sure we would all love to hear that from each other. And something that's making you happy today. And while you're doing that, so there's going to be the chat, and then I'm also going to launch a poll just to see who has been here in one of my other sessions or any of my other sessions. Okay, so we have, would love to hear from each of you, answers to the questions that are on the slide. Can you see the slides okay? Are they showing up? Okay. So we've got 5 people interacting with the polls. That's great. One person is saying they've come to more than one, and everybody else is a newbie. So welcome to all of you who I haven't met yet. I'd love to hear from the rest of you before I end the poll. This is going to be, this is worth a CTLE, meaning it's like a class. It's an accredited class, like you were in school. It's going to work towards your professional development. Oh my gosh, Mr. Gleason, wow, that made you happy today. That's awesome. Okay, we have someone who's been with me for 1, and then that's interesting. So for those of you who haven't been with me before, this is the 4th, no, this is the 3rd in the series. And if you haven't taken A or B, there will be 2 options if you want to catch up on those. One is to take it asynchronously, and we'll get into how to do that later. Thank you, Ms. Jones. That's a good thing to be happy about. Oh my gosh, Mr. Dogilio, I'm not sure how I'm saying it right or not, but that children following routines and rules is pretty amazing. That's a big thing to be happy about. So what I'd like to, kind of say is, like, you can get the CTLEs for the previous 2 sessions asynchronously, or if you really get more out of interacting with a live person, the new ones will come around again. So I've gotten 9 of you 9 of you have responded. I really appreciate that. We have 12 people here, so hopefully, we'll get us all involved. All right, so I'm going to end that poll, share the results, so you can see them too. As we do these polls and quizzes, it's all going to be anonymous, so no worries. And we're just going to have a couple other opportunities for that in the future. Okay, so norms for our engagement today. Like I said, this is a class for credit, so it's important that we're here now. I know this is your PD time for if you're in a public school. And there's probably other things demanding your attention, your grading, other teachers, other things going on. I really appreciate it if you can be here now, because you're going to get more out of that course. And so will the other participants. It will be even a great way to share just gonna close that out. It'll be a great way, like if we get into breakout rooms, to hear from each other if we are interacting. Oh, interesting. Okay, we got more interaction here. That's great. Thank you so much. So we're going to have a few other norms, sticking to the protocol, hearing all voices. I don't think that's going to be a problem. We're going to start and end on time. That's my promise to you. And take an inquiry stance. We're all here to learn, including myself. Take responsibility for impact. That's an important one. If I say or do something that has a negative impact, I want to know about it. If it has a positive impact, I also want to know about it. And if you want to know the same, then please feel free to say so yourself, but I can't speak for anyone else. And then we're going to be grounding our statements in evidence. Oh my goodness. Okay, thank you, Ms. Esnard. Yes, I definitely recognize you. You're one of my on-screen heroes. I really appreciate it because it helps to be able to look at someone when you're speaking. Okay, so this is course C, as I was saying before. The previous two were the planning and preparation across technology-enabled learning environments, and we're going to be using some of the concepts of that today, but it's not too much repetition, so you'll be able to catch on if you weren't in one of them. Course B was building classroom community, and then in course D, we're going to get into, thank you, Mr. Gleason, appreciate seeing your face. Course D is going to be the assessment cycle, and we have two more after that. Okay, so what are we doing today? We are going to consider some essential questions. How can we adapt assessments to fit whatever learning environment we're in? How can we capture authentic evidence of student learning? How can students receive learning motivating feedback? And then our objectives within that, we're going to look at the research basis for high impact assessment practices. We're going to look at our traditional assessments and adapt them using the SAMR framework. And Ms. Esnard, I'm sure you remember what that is. If not, it'll be a good refresher today. And then number 3 is, as always, nurture student ownership and growth mindset. So time for a link. I'm going to give you a link to our note catcher. If you've been with me before, you know what I'm going to do is give you a link in the chat. When you open that link, it will ask you to make a copy in your own Google Drive. This will be a guide for what we do today, and it will be a place for you to retain what we do for future reference. So if you have any trouble at all, please let me know, and I will happily paste it in again. And if someone else wants to volunteer to continue to paste as more people come, that would be great. So this is what the note catcher looks like. It's in landscape format. Once you have it, it will be yours to do with whatever you please. Okay, moving ahead. So let's take a look at this graphic. This graphic was created as a word cloud from a large group of people responding to the question, what does assessment mean to you? Like, what words go with assessment? So take a look at that. And obviously assessment is huge because that's the focus. But look at all the other things that go with that for a moment. Welcome back, Ms. Vela. Welcome back, Ms. Vela. It looks like you're dropping off sometimes. I'm going to paste the link back in case you didn't get it to the note catcher. Okay, so we're taking a look at that. It's also in your note catcher for future reference. So with this, okay, you can take notes in your note catcher about this first. I'll give you a minute to think. But the questions we're going to ask are, how might any of these terms change across learning environments? And when we say learning environments, we mean in-person, blended, or hybrid, or remote. And what do we need to know or do? So I'm going to give you a minute to go ahead and put your notes right underneath the graphic about what you think, and then we'll have a share out. Okay, let's share now. Feel free to come off mute or put in the chat. Might any of these change? And if so, how? The curriculum might change as students' needs change throughout the course of the school year. Thank you. I'm going to say Barbara because I would need your guidance in how to say your last name. Thank you. What else?
Can it also change depending on the child's behavior and learning disability?
Okay, yep. Depending on behavior disability. There was a story I just read on that note of someone who was a special needs teacher. I don't know how many of us are like self-contained teachers or ICT teachers, but there was a story I read recently of a teacher who she had one student who would seem to know their stuff orally, but would never ever be able to respond on a test. They failed everything. And figuring that out, she would take them into a room and privately interview the student orally about each question one at a time. It was, now that I remember, it was actually the page full of problems or questions that would shut the child down. And that might be too hard to do for every student who does that, and there might be other ways to address it. But was identifying what that student needed, to your point. Student will change across grade levels. This is great stuff. All right, so I'm going, Ms. Esnar, okay. Thank you so much for those who participated and everyone else who listened. We're gonna keep going. So one thing to, okay, Ms. Vela, you direct messaged me and I want to share it with the whole group. So I'm going to read it out. It says to incorporate new research. Yeah, we definitely need to incorporate new research as we consider these questions for sure. Did you have something to add to that, Ms. Esner? You're off mute. So I thought you might need to want to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, depending on the child's behavior, learning disabilities, definitely. Thank you so much. Okay, so research. Now research, there's a lot of research, but this particular one comes out of this document, which I'll put the link into the chat just because it's a good one. And it's called the opportunity myth, okay? And this is, the graphic is taken from there. And it shows that when students are not either cognitively or emotionally or both, their engagement is low and they don't engage in deep learning. Conversely, the more that the lessons are engaging and cognitively and emotionally, the more they are able to learn deeply. So let's keep that in mind as we go forward. As we go and look at our assessments, we need to keep in mind that they need to be relevant and authentic. What kinds of assessments do we do? Well, we generally break them down into two types, formative and summative. Does anyone have a good definition of a formative assessment that they'd like to offer? Okay, so that's a great example, Barbara. It's a quiz or an exit. Well, an exit ticket could be formative. Fist to 5, that's definitely formative. Those are great examples, and those are going to be important later, but definition, like how would you define a formative assessment? What did the students learn? Okay, what did the students learn, but while the learning is happening? It's actually not the end product. It's like, how's it going? And how do I need to adjust my instruction to meet how it needs to go, right? Quick example of formative assessment. You come in, you ask a question that would be something you would expect them to know at the end of the lesson, whatever subject it is, right? If everyone gets it right, well, you don't need to teach that lesson, do you? They already know it. So you move on to something else. If you ask something that maybe they should have known from the day before and not a single person gets it, like an entry ticket, right? Then you know you've got to do some reteaching or re-engagement because they're not for whatever reason they didn't get it yesterday. So those are kind of two extremes. We often find a mix, but it can also help us figure out how to differentiate the lesson as it goes on. Okay, Mr. Marsh just joined us, and I recognize that name. I am going to give you Mr. Marsh. Oh, he's still connecting to audio. So a summative assessment, on the other hand, anyone want to have a go with that? A unit exam. Oh, Ms. Jones, thank you. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, a check-in helps us to pivot or inform us where to go next. A unit exam is an example of summative, but so is a midway quiz. You're still trying to see, and not so there's different types of quizzes, right? There's quizzes that are really very low stakes, that really don't count against a grade. But if it's a graded thing, generally that's more summative. That's where we're kind of looking to summarize what students have learned. Mr. Marsh, welcome. I'm so glad you could make it. I'm going to give you the link to the note catcher for today, okay? So this is another example. This is an analogy. When the chef tastes the soup, right? The chef's still cooking it. That's formative. When it's served out to the guests, there's no changing it at that point, right? I mean, they might add some salt, but it's like, it's done. It's an end product. So that's one way to think about formative and summative. So looking at the assessment cycle, right? It starts with, so what this is missing, and I should have probably added this in. We have a revised version of this course that we're doing now, and this is like, in a way, a beta test because it's the first time we're giving this version of it. So what we're missing is the arrow back to the beginning. I'm going to add that later. So just imagine that. Okay. In fact, you know what? I'm going to be fancy, and I am going to draw. Now this is interesting because I have not yet used the new Zoom toolbar, so it's like a little puzzling. Anyway, it goes back like that. So the first step in this particular version of it is that we get teacher guidance and feedback, and there are all these qualities to it that we need to understand are part of it. It needs to be specific, timely, non-evaluative, manageable, and ongoing, right? That then leads to student-centered learning and engagement. That needs to have choice, voice, attraction, persistence, and delight. What a great word. I love the word delight. almost as much as I love the word joy. And then we have, at the end of that, authentic assessments where they apply their learning. It's performance-based, it's realistic, meaningful, and significant. And then that leads back into teacher guidance and feedback, right? So it's a cycle. It's not just a one-way thing. It goes on and on and on. So I'm going to erase that because I have to put a permanent one in later. Okay. So now we are going to have our first of two quizzes. Now, these are non-evaluative quizzes, and I want to tell you why I'm doing them. If you have not read the book, Make It Stick, I'm going to say, I told this in another course, I'm going to say it again. Make It Stick is a fabulous book about how we learn, and it's by Peter C. Brown. And one of the things they really found in research is that when you have frequent like low stakes quizzes, students actually get more out of a course and they enjoy it more because there's no grade attached to it, but it helps the learning stick more because part of learning is forgetting, and it helps to interrupt the forgetting process. So I'm going to do this using a Zoom poll, and this is modeling actually if you are teaching remotely or blended. One way that you can have an interaction in a lesson that includes less forgetting and also increase engagement, hopefully. So I'm hoping you'll all model increased engagement too. Okay, so here's our mini quiz, okay? I'm just gonna give 1 minute, so we're not gonna wait forever. And remember, the results are gonna be anonymous. There's nothing bad if you don't get it. It's a learning opportunity. We have 5 people, 6 people, 7 people, thank you. 8 people, fantastic. Okay, 9 people. So the question is, deep learning happens when students are engaged. Choice A is cognitively, B is emotionally, C is both cognitively and emotionally. So we have 20 more seconds for everyone to put their answer in. We have 12 people responding. I'm very impressed. Thank you so much. We have 14 people, just a couple more people to respond. Can you do it before the time is up? 5 more seconds. And not bad at all. Okay, so I'm going to end it. These are the results, okay? So now we remember that for deep learning to happen, students need to be engaged both cognitively and emotionally. Okay, great. How was that? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Give me an emoji if you don't mind, and you can do that using the Zoom or your own finger if you're on screen, or and the chat is fine too. There are little reactions in like the Zoom bar that you can use to put over your Zoom box. Okay. Oh, thank you. Got more reactions. Excellent. Fantastic. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of an activity, which is in your note catcher. I want you to think about your own assessments. I want you to think of 3 that you currently use in your classroom. For example, an exit ticket, which we've already mentioned today. So this is going to be in here, the second page. You're going to think of 3 different assessments, 1 on each line. You're going to identify them as formative or summative. Think about when you administer them now, is it high, low, or no tech needed? And then you're going to pick one to see how will it change across learning environments when you think about it. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 minutes to do that, and I'm going to share the document again. We just had someone else join us. Welcome. Okay, so this is the note catcher. It's going to ask you to make a copy. You have 2 minutes to answer these questions. Hello, Ms. O'Brien. So good to see you. So we're doing this activity right now, activity number 2. And this is in the note catcher that I just put. Sorry. This is in the note catcher that I put into the chat. Did you get it? Okay. If I were in person, I'd be giving prizes to everyone who's on the screen. I really appreciate it. Welcome, Ms. Deegan. Did you drop off or are you here for the first time? Because
No, my computer died for some reason. I don't know, the battery, and then it took a while to get back in. But I've been here since the beginning.
but you have the note catcher then.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, just checking. Okay, terrific. Okay, so we all hopefully have that filled in with our ideas. If you'd like to put into the chat which one you chose or what assessment you used and how it goes across, or if you'd like to open up and speak about it, I'd love that. We can have a couple minutes for that. So I'm going to give an example, just of an exit slip. And has anyone here ever used Plickers? Plickers. Oh, Barbara put it in. Exit ticket, students going up and showing the class what they know. Okay, great. Entrance ticket, hot seat, clicker, and exit tickets. Great. So Flickr is another thing, Barbara. It's actually a website for photos, but Plickers, I'm going to write it in the chat because it's a great website. And in fact, I'd like to show it to you briefly. Do this. Very briefly, we're going to look at it. Basically, you create a slideshow in here, and then every student gets, and I'll show you what it looks like. Every student gets a set of printable cards. They sort of look like QR codes, but they, let's take a look at this. I'll just show you what it looks like. It's a PDF. So this is card Plickr 1, okay? And you see it has 4 sides, A, B, C, and D. So if you put a multiple choice question on the screen, then the students, if the answer is B, they hold their card number 1 up with the card B up, like the side B up. And you scan with your phone, and it live comes out with a graph like it. Well, first of all, it shows who was scanned by the turns their number blue. and they can put their cards down. But it also gives you a live view on your phone on who's getting it right and who's getting it wrong. So that's one example of using an entrance ticket or an exit ticket with technology in a more efficient way than by paper, because you can do it at quick. So you could use with multiple choice or true false. An example is like, I'll choose, like, I don't even know what's in this one anymore. But basically I would present this. It would not show the correct answer. When it's presented, students would choose by holding up their clicker and they're free to print. And then you'd see a live graph, and at the end you can reveal the correct answer if you want. But you can not, hide student names and student responses. So that's just one example of a free way to use technology for that kind of formative assessment. All right, this is great. All right, I'm gonna go back to the slideshow now. I've demonstrated this a lot in schools, actually. Okay. Back to where I was. Okay, good. So we're going to do a little bit of learning now, and you can always take notes in your note catcher if you like. So this is the model that we're going to be looking at assessment through as we bring it across learning environments. The SAMR model stands for substitution, augmentation, modification, and redefinition. It was created to create a common language to talk about this across disciplines and help students like visualize how it could look in different ways. So we're going to look at some examples of what this looks like. And with my Plickers example, I want you to kind of think, which would it be? Would it be S, A, M, or R? Okay. Here's another analogy. We love our food analogies. We had soup, now we're having coffee. It's nice for a cool fall day. So basically with substitution, it's a one-to-one substitution. So instead of paper and pencil, you have a direct replacement, okay, as like black coffee. Augmentation. To augment means to enhance in some way, right? So we have the direct substitution, but some functional improvement. So that would be like a latte. A modification, significant redesign. And that might be a caramel macchiato, if that's your jam. And then redefinition is where we create new possibilities for assessment or whatever it is, tasks that we wouldn't have been able to do without technology. They just wouldn't have been on our screen. So a little bit more about each one of them. Okay, like I said, substitution is just replacing the thing with a technology thing. Okay, so here are some examples. Instead of writing on paper, you're taking notes in a Word doc or on Google Doc. Instead of drawing on the hand, drawing on paper, you draw on iPad. Instead of making graphs, you do spreadsheet graphs, this kind of things. Okay. Here's some examples of direct substitution, a handwritten set of, tables to one that is done in technology. Augmentation is still a substitution, but it has some functional improvement. Okay. So instead of a handwritten quiz, you use Kahoot. So there's like an added level to it, right? Instead of typing into Word or Docs, you have voice recognition software to help you dictate instead of writing. Here's an example. We have a plastic onboard scoring rubric on the left, and then we have a computerized scoring rubric on the right. Modification. This is where we can start to redesign our tasks significantly. So I'm sure you use an LMS. Do you remember in 2020, most of us weren't that familiar with Google Classroom, right? Or any other LMS. So we would need to get all our papers and tests and everything submitted physically. Now we can have them submitted electronically, which makes them a lot easier to review in certain ways, and it makes them a lot harder to lose too. One of the things I do on the side is I tutor a few kids, people who reach out to me for help. And I can't tell you the number of times I come to their house and they don't have the paper that was handed out. And it makes such a difference in their life if the teacher uploaded a copy to their LMS. It means we can actually use the review sheet or whatever it is to help them study. And then sometimes you can have it automatically graded. You can have students do peer review via LMS to give feedback. There's all kinds of cool things you can do. And here's an example of what that might look like. You have feedback that is written versus feedback which is done as comments, as highlights, like there's just a lot more rich possibility there. Redefinition. So what is that like? So that's where we have our tasks that just were, as the Sicilian said in A Princess Bride, inconceivable before technology. So for example, instead of having a poster board done in class, they create a wiki. Instead of writing a summary of a book, they film a student recreation of a scene or a chapter. And we're going to look at a brief video of that. I'm just going to double check that my sharing is still set to sharing sound. Double check, yeah. Here we go. All right, so this is a brief clip of a clip.
And a lot more educational for them to make a video on this topic because they wanted to actually prove that they were able to visualize the characters in their head and really create the characters using video.
In closer, back to kids. Perfect.
Prior to this project, the 8th grade students had very limited experience in film. They had never had experience with costume design or scenery, location scouting, or any of that. When we began this project, they actually wrote the scripts, and as they were writing, they actually had to write all of the action cues, and they had to come up with props and costumes that would really enhance their scene. Some of them ended up doing research on Tom Sawyer. They also used what they found online and what they pictured as they were reading to create the scenes, the locations, costumes, and everything that they filmed.
Okay, so how many people noticed? You remember I said this is like a beta test for me? How many people noticed the glitch here? Maybe this is like a mini quiz. Who's actually paying attention carefully? So the glitch that I need to fix is that the video is about students putting on a play about Tom Sawyer, and the example on the text is saying Hamlet. So yeah, I gotta fix that. Again, I'm testing out something that was someone else created. So. Okay, another example. If we take a look at a paper quiz and we take it through the SAMR levels, right? We take at substitution, right? Instead of taking a paper quiz, we use a tool like even the ones I use to just take a quiz online. The augmentation, we already talked about this, Kahoot, to administer a quiz during class, or something similar. Even Edpuzzle could be an example of that. Modification is students, like, for example, creating flashcards on Quizlet. You're actually changing you're assessing their knowledge in a fundamentally different way. And redefinition is you're creating an opportunity that technology wouldn't have allowed, for example, creating a wiki. Any questions about this so far? That's a big summary for Hamlet. It's true, Barbara. Okay, any other questions or thoughts on that? Feel free to unmute at any time. Okay. All right, so the question when we're looking at this is, what do we want our students to do as opposed to what do we want them to learn about? We're going to do another quiz. Okay, so let me get my thingy up. Okay. You ready? We're going to do another quiz. I'm launching it now. This is about summer. And there might be more than one right answer. So in this, if you can justify why you say it, feel free to say, but I think it's whatever. So again, I'm only going to give a minute for this. We got 4 people so far. Love it. I'm getting a variety of responses. Woo. Got 9 people out of 16. 10, yes. We're creeping up there. Awesome. Another few seconds and then I'm going to end it. Anybody else going to weigh in? What you think? Oh, we got another one. Yay. Okay, I'm going to end it. We've got 11 responses and I'm going to share my results. Now, I set the correct answer as substitution because it really is just like the kind of thing, if I handed out a bunch of pieces of paper, you know, of course it makes it easier on my end to see the results quickly. So from that standpoint, you could definitely say there's augmentation there, but it's more augmentation for me than for you, other than making it a lot quicker to respond, right? But it doesn't functionally change the type of assessment it is. Does anyone want to argue? We have several people saying it's modifications. Does anyone want to argue for modification? Love to hear your reasoning. I don't know who answered it, so that's really interesting, Barbara. You say some students do better with computer quizzes than paper and pen. So I see that I see an association here between modification for students, as we use it as a term in special needs, versus the SAMR definition of modification, which is where it's a functional modification of the task itself. Like there's something that it does very differently than the original task. Does that make sense? Wanda dropped off, she's coming back. Anyone else want to add? I'm really glad you brought that up because it is, yeah, it is a quick assessment, just a quick snapshot, you're right. And this allows us to kind of review what are the definitions and what do they really mean. So a modification might be, depending on what your answer was, if it then sent you off into different breakout rooms to watch a specific video that it launched all by itself to explore whatever one you chose, okay? That might be modification level of assessment. For example, actually I was having students adding questions. Yeah, definitely, that could be a modification. I was part of designing an SEL course, and part of what we were doing was based on what the students' mood responses were. they would be sent into one or another paths while they were learning. This was all online. This was all fully asynchronous. Based on what they were learning, what their responses were, they would have one type or another type of social emotional activity. So let's say they were kind of feeling very low energy. They might have an energizing activity. If they were feeling a little hyper, they might have a meditation activity. So it was responsive to their needs. And that is not something that is easy to individualize that quickly and that easily in a classroom. I mean, you could do the same thing. You could argue that it's substituting, but you'd have to split yourself into 3 or 4 to address the different quadrants of students, right? You'd have to have that many teachers there. Whereas with technology, you can address all 4 needs at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing that right now. Okay. All righty. Thank you for participating in that. Wanda, you still can't hear anything? Oh, you can hear it now. Okay, great. Thank you for saying, coming in. I've noticed a lot of people having audio issues when they just don't plug their headphones in all the way. It's happened several times with people I've been working with. All right, so we're going to do activity 3. And what we're going to do is we're going to revisit our chosen assessment for activity 2. Okay, whatever assessment you personally chose. And I want you to ask yourself 2 questions. 1, how will you alter it for in-person instruction? And 2, how will you adapt it for remote or hybrid environment? Okay. I'm going to give you 3 minutes think time on this. Okay. And then we're going to come back together and I may put you in a breakout rooms. I'm not sure. I'm going to think about it. So go ahead and take 3 minutes. We're going to go back into our note catcher. Does anyone need the note catcher again? Okay, so we're going back to this page. And the questions again are, how will you alternate your particular assessment for in-person instruction and how for remote or hybrid? And we're using the SAMR framework to think about it. And that is here, okay? So in your note catcher, you'll see this is a place for it. Okay. Okay, about 40 more seconds to work. Okay, so I hope that was fruitful. What we're going to do now is I've created some breakout rooms, and I'm going to invite you to choose a room. And that tells me if, you know, if you're there and you're engaging. If you choose a room, then it's a place to share what you've found, because this is our opportunity to be with colleagues and share professional ideas so we can all walk away more enriched. And I know sometimes it's intimidating being in a whole group together. So we're going to just have a few minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, to share some thoughts and ideas. And I'm going to go ahead and open those now. If you're having trouble getting into a room, please tell me which room you'd like me to put you into. Okay. Great. We've got a couple people in rooms. Great. Awesome. Great. Okay, Maria, you'd like to go into room 2. Okay. Put you in room 2. Oh, Hindi. Mr. Marsh, were you trying to say something? You turned green.
Sorry, no, sorry about that.
No, no worries. We're in breakout rooms now, and
Okay,
yeah, just a couple of you haven't joined.
let me see which ones I can you send me the one?
You have to look now in the bottom of your screen. There should be like a little box that says breakout rooms. But honestly, everyone's coming back in like 20 seconds, so it's not really worth it.
I'm sorry, I'm doing multiple things at once.
Yeah, a lot of us are. I get that. Okay, so I'm
How
gonna
many
bring
people were, oh, it's about 15 in here, right?
16. Yeah,
16. Okay.
yeah. Okay, so a few more seconds for everyone to come back, and then we're going to wind out our session today. We only have a few more minutes left. Okay, great. Well, I hope some of us got to have productive conversations. I know sometimes it's a little awkward in these when you don't know the people and it's only an hour. But as these go on, hopefully, we'll have more engagement and volunteerism. So, okay, so as we wind up, I want to remind you that you can get more CTLE credits. There are both, as I said at the beginning, both synchronous and asynchronous possibilities. I need to get to the chat. And I need to tell you something about, oh yeah, you can earn $50 if you refer 6 DOE members. And we want to get your feedback. Now, one thing to know, we have added something into our survey, which is your personal email address. And the reason for that is because there has been some blocking in the DOE of DOE email addresses. So we want you to get your credit, and that's why we ask for your email. But don't worry, it's not going to be attached to your feedback, okay? So either way, we would love to hear what you have to say about the course. We're always working to improve it. We know we need to update the slide on Tom Sawyer / Hamlet, but anything else is we would really love to hear. I really appreciate all the people who participated today and brought your best, and
Hello?
everyone who came. Yes.
Hi, I have a question. So I've taken other courses through Solved. I've taken at this point, this is my third one.
Yay.
And I completed most of this, all the surveys, and I haven't received any of the certificates, but I was putting in the DOE email. So how would I be able to retrieve those? Would you happen to know?
Yes. So we have not, well, this is not something that's new to us. So if you go to the Solved website and you go
Okay.
to the CTLE courses, and you there are where is it? There used to be a chat with us. You can absolutely here it is. admin@solvedconsulting.com. They'll have your registration info. You can absolutely email me if you want. You will also have a copy of this slideshow in the note catcher at the bottom. This is your copy of the slideshow. So you can refer back to that. But yeah, so I appreciate you doing that. Hopefully with this iteration of putting your email address and we won't run into that issue anymore. I'm really glad you brought it up though. All right, I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes, but you're free to do this survey on, as you can, if you save the link or now. Otherwise, thank you so much. I look forward, I hope to see you again. And hopefully you have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye again, Wanda. Great to see you. Bye, Mr. Gleason. Bye, Ms. O'Brien. Bye, everyone. You're welcome to, if you don't have any more questions. Oh, hi, Mr. Marsh. Good to see your face. Ah,
Good to see your face throughout the meeting.
yeah, I don't get to hide. I could be a disembodied voice. See how that goes.
Take it easy.
You too. Be well. Thank you, Ms. Esnard. Thank you, Ms. Deegan. Thank you, Mr. Dogelio.